Hi, everybody. Jennifer McCune here, representing Mompreneur Next Door platform. And I'm super excited. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I just want to share what our mission at Mompreneur Next Door. And when I say our mission, it's mine because I founded this, but it's ours because there's so many mompreneurs who are part of this platform. So I am a mompreneur. I started my own business 7 years ago and was looking for this great platform that I could share tips with people and I could highlight other mompreneurs and they could share their tips as well. I think there's so many great moms out there looking for something, looking for inspiration and support, and I wanted to offer that on this platform. So I met so many incredible women along the way, and Megan Giltner is one of them. Megan and I connected through social media, which is really interesting because we live in the same town. We both live in Charlottesville, Virginia. And Megan has a unique story. I have not interviewed anybody yet who has a bricks and mortar business. So I'm excited to highlight Megan today and let her share a little bit more about her journey. So Megan, before we hop into that, thank you so much for saying yes. Thank you so much for hopping on today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and be a part of this community.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's dive right in. And so you started your entrepreneurial business a couple of years ago. Tell us about what your life looked like prior to that and why you decided to do something so completely different.
So I've been working in bricks and mortar retail since 2010, which feels like a long time sometimes. And I initially intended, after graduating with a business degree from a university in Wisconsin, to go into market research. And that didn't quite pan out. I didn't enter into a great job market at the time. And so I started working for a friend who had a lingerie store. And I've basically never looked back. Every time I've needed a job, it's always been something that I've been able to rely on. I developed some really great skills working for her. And as much as at the time I thought there's no way I'll ever use this again, that's what got me to where I am today. So in 2016, the store that I was working for came up for sale. And after a lot of soul searching, my husband and I decided to buy it.
That is crazy. And throughout that time period, you left out one little piece of
Mm-hmm.
tidbit news. You had a child, right? Just to make
I
things more
was
interesting.
I was about 3.5 months pregnant with our son when we signed the official closing paperwork.
So, how did that come into play when you were deciding whether to do a bricks and mortar? Because it is very different. You physically have to
It
be there or
is.
make sure people are there.
So I always knew that I wanted to follow along in the footsteps of two amazing business owners that I worked for. And they founded a business while they were still growing their family and have grown it to a point where neither the husband or wife are in the stores day to day. And as much as I love what I do, I knew that I couldn't do it alone. And I wanted to help more and more people. So the only way to do that was to teach people how to profit and trust them to use those skills to help our clients.
Is it
So
and
that's
that,
always been the goal for me.
that's amazing. That's leadership 101. It's teaching more people to
Mhm.
fish rather than giving people to fish, right? So
Exactly.
that's fantastic. So you don't go into the store every day. You're still able to spend time.
Mhm.
You have a son, right? It's with
I
your
do. Yep. I have a 3-year-old son, and right now I'm home with him about 2 days during the week and then at least one weekend day.
son.
My end goal is to really be in each one of my locations one day a week and then be able to spend most of the rest of the week with my family.
How many locations do you have now?
I have 2 stores, one in Charlottesville and one in Roanoke.
That is amazing. And the name of your store?
It's Derriere de Soie.
Derriere de Soie. So talk to us a little bit because everybody hears, I mean, the big thing now is retail is dying, bricks and mortar is dying. So there are still people out there like you who are interested in doing bricks and mortar, and still people out there like you who are doing well at them. So talk more about that and what differentiates you and why you are doing well.
So I think one of the key things that helps us is that bras and panties are really hard to buy online. You can totally do it, but you'll end up sending a bunch back.
Right.
And when you want to feel really great about yourself, you don't really want to try on 27 bras and send back 26 of them, you want to try on maybe a handful and walk out of the store with 2 or 3 that you love the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do is help cut down on the buy, try, return cycle. And that's been a really unique differentiating feature for my stores, is that you come in and you can expect to walk away with something you love without having to go back and forth.
That's wonderful. And I do think you're right. There are certain markets people still just want to try them on. It's different than a sweatshirt that you just don't care.
Right.
It's very, very different, right? So talk to us. We all know that any mompreneur gig, whether it's online, in your home, in a coffee shop, whatever, has its benefits and has its challenges. You had a degree in one thing and now you own your own lingerie business. What have been some of the biggest benefits and why you're so grateful it's worked out this way?
So one of the things that I love the best is that there are days when I don't have to go in, and I'm able to hand off projects to other people because I trust that they will do a good job. And then I can check in from home or from the park or the playground or whatever and still be involved without having to hold someone's hand or babysit them 24/7. And the flip side to that is that when I want to have some space to be an adult and to have grown up conversations, I can do that. And I get to leave my kid with a trusted babysitter and go do my job and do something that I really love. And so I feel like being able to do both for me is something that I really needed. I have to say, I never wanted to be a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Hmm.
I knew from a very young age that that wasn't for me. And so in struggling to figure out what direction I wanted to go with my life, having this fall into my lap was actually a really amazing thing. And I
It's so
think that it's
funny.
worked out perfectly.
I mean, absolutely. And it's so funny that you recognize that you didn't want to be a stay at home mom. I always thought I did. And then circumstances arose that I was a stay at home mom full time for a while. And it wasn't a good fit for me either
Yeah.
because, like you said, having a professional outlet, having that time when you can have different sorts of conversations and intellectually stimulating interactions was
Hmm.
exceedingly important to me as well. So I totally hear you. Now, I know you guys have done really well in your business, nonetheless, and you love it. Nonetheless, there have to be some challenges, right? It's not
Oh, there
all.
are.
So share with people the real life challenges, both from an entrepreneurial standpoint in general, but then also what that looks like from a bricks and mortar for those who are interested in doing that.
So for bricks and mortar, I have to say that the biggest struggle is always going to be staffing.
Mm,
No matter how great your employees are, stuff happens. I mean, we're all human. Somebody gets sick, somebody else's kids are sick, whatever, things come up.
right,
Um, we try really hard to make sure that those personal experiences never impact our clients, but every once in a while it just does. There's nothing we can do about that. And so we try to be gracious with our clients and with ourselves and kind of move through that as positively as we can. For me personally, it's been a little bit of a struggle to compartmentalize work time, home time, because I think it's easy to fall into the trap of, oh, I can do it all. And I can do it all the time. And
right,
that's just not true.
right, right.
One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given was actually from my OBGYN, who said, get someone to do your laundry. Like,
Wow.
it's the best thing that you can do for your mental health right now. Get someone to do your laundry. Someone who is not you needs to do your laundry.
So who do you have
And
do your laundry?
well, we have an in-home babysitter that comes a couple days a week. And I always felt really weird about letting people clean things in my house because I just have to have it a certain way. And the sooner I let go of that, the faster I felt a little bit better. So one of their chores is to do a load of laundry while they're here. And it takes them like 20 minutes and
Right,
it's done. And it's
right,
amazing.
right.
And they're teaching my kid that he needs to put his own things away. And that's amazing because I never wanted to raise a child who thinks that clothes just magically appear in your dresser.
Right, right.
So accepting even small amounts of help has been really huge.
I think the other things with bricks and I think you're right that the accepting help is a huge challenge for so many moms. And I think once you've done it, like you've said, and you realize how beneficial it is,
Mhm.
That's huge. So talk to me more about the bricks and mortar, because not only do you have to worry about employees, but you have to worry about finding a space that's
Mhm.
going to have a good amount of traffic. You have to worry about paying for
Mhm.
utilities, rent. You have to worry about layout. You have to worry about inventory. I mean, there are a whole host of other, and I'm not saying that online businesses don't have their challenges. They
Oh,
certainly,
they do.
but this has those challenges that are different. Have you found any of those to be challenges, or does it not seem as daunting as it may appear to those of us on the outside?
I mean, when we purchased the store, we had about 30 days to move into a new space. And at the time, we didn't have a new space to move into. So that was a little bit stressful. But sometimes the universe just kind of conspires to make things happen. And that's sort of what happened for us. I was walking one day and saw a for lease sign in what is now our current home in Charlottesville. And I ended up with a great landlord, which was amazing. That was really intimidating. But once we started moving the process along with him, everything else felt a little bit less scary.
Hmm.
And then opening a second location, because we had had such a strong experience with our first landlord, helped me feel empowered to ask for the things that I wanted and needed and be a little bit more aware of what I needed to do to make that a successful experience. So, I mean, there are certainly headaches. You'll invariably be out of something when somebody wants it.
Right.
And the best thing that we can do is say, we'll call you when we get it in, or we'll order it for you if that's something that's available to us. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't,
Right.
depending on the vendor. Um, and just do our best to always treat people with respect and with kindness. And I think that that goes a really long way in smoothing over any of those hiccups. So I try not to get too bogged down into, you know, having something for someone on hand all the time, because at that point I'm not really paying attention to the bigger picture, which is that I
Right.
need to help as many people as possible most of the time.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. So you touched a little bit on this. I want to get into the next fun part, and I think
Yeah.
you're still going to talk more about your experiences. But if you could look at your younger you and give yourself one piece of advice, maybe it's the to have somebody do your laundry, or is it something else, kind of a bigger picture type thing?
um, I think give yourself grace. I describe myself as kind of a semi-reformed perfectionist,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of times when I've spent too much mental energy on things where it really doesn't matter.
Right.
And being able to recognize that done is better than perfect, and that sometimes the right answer is no, is something that I wish I had maybe been more in tune with when I was younger. I think being a mom has definitely helped me accept that sometimes the answer is no.
It kind of forces you into it.
Yes.
I mean,
Like
life.
whether you're ready or not,
Yeah.
sometimes the right answer is no.
Exactly, exactly. And it's funny you say that. Back when I was working on my dissertation, one of my professors always said a good dissertation is a done dissertation, because I think so many people are so worried about being perfect
Yep.
that they never finish. And it's like, well, at a certain point, what is perfect? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just such a qualitative measure. It's really hard to lay that out. So, good advice. So, we might have a lot of people who are watching this who could be thinking of a bricks and mortar and
Yeah.
feeling really, really overwhelmed, not sure what to do. Do you have a few pieces of advice that you would help lay out for them to help them know what to do?
Yeah. So start by assuming that your build out is going to take twice as long as you think it's going to. It always does. It's like the classic home renovation issue,
Yeah,
scope creep.
right.
It will take longer than you want it to.
Mhm.
Plan for that.
How
Always
about
try
price
to,
with that? Are
well,
you?
and I would say always assume that it's going to cost more than you think it will.
Mhm, mhm,
I've heard different estimates assume for like a 20% increase.
mhm,
I think it really depends on how much you have to do. A smaller changeover might be a smaller budget requirement. Larger changes, that it's going to cost more than you think it
mhm,
will.
mhm.
um, Interview vendors who are going to be doing work for you, and be upfront about what you expect and check their references. um, don't be afraid to ask for more from your landlord. Like, if you don't ask, the answer is no.
So
And if
what sorts
there's
of things would people ask for from a landlord? What would that even look like?
so one of the things that can sometimes be negotiable is a move-in date. And so maybe there's an option to move in early, but have your lease technically start 30 days later, and you end up with 30 days basically free occupancy where you can finish your build out where you're not paying rent. Because functionally, you're not making any money until you're open.
Right.
And so sometimes covering those first couple months rent can be pretty tricky. The other thing is ask them to pay for some of the work. If it's kind of building maintenance things that really should be fixed anyhow, ask that they cover them. They might come back and say, yeah, sure, I can see that I'm getting a return on this.
Right.
Um, be prepared to figure out kind of what your perfect world scenario is and what you can live with for a while. I think that's kind of important just in life. Like, okay, what's okay right now and what is really the end goal? And then
Right.
you can figure out how to get from point A to point B. But those are some things that I would always think about asking for. And also, remember that rent rates are negotiable. If you're not asking them to come down a little bit, or if you're asking for maybe a couple months, either reduced rate rent or waived rent, they're not going to say yes if you don't ask.
Right, right. And I think that's a good piece of advice in general. A lot of times we hear that women are earning less
Yep.
or certain things. And a lot of times it's because the women are not asking and the men are asking. So
Yep.
you're right. If we're not asking, the answer is always no. So you might as well at least ask and
Mm-hmm.
find out where the
Put it
wiggle
out there. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And that's what would have happened if you didn't ask anyhow.
Exactly, 100%. So, do you have an online presence as well, or do you not have an online presence at all?
So I have a website, and I'll be honest with you, we sold online under the previous owner for a while, and it was a gigantic headache.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I think for a couple of reasons. Returns could
Hmm.
be really problematic, and dealing with, as an independent store, it was more difficult for us to deal with fraud. And as much as I don't want to believe that there is credit card fraud out there and there are people trying to get something for it, it happens. And it happened
Interesting.
for us enough that it was becoming a serious drain on not only brain power in terms of dealing with all of the next steps and fighting fraudulent claims, and then also just the loss of product, because invariably it would be like a $350 purchase that all of a sudden, you deal with the chargeback and that money gets yanked out of your bank account
Right,
pretty darn fast,
right,
and
right,
you're out $350 worth of stuff.
right. So your online presence now just is to say, come
Yep.
visit us. This we have two
Yep.
locations.
We have 2 locations. We run a blog, which is really amazing.
It's okay.
Tempe, be quiet.
This is
That
real
would be
life
my dog. The
working.
joys of having a home office.
Exactly, exactly.
Um, so it really didn't work for us to be selling online. We'd end up losing more than we were making. And I pretty quickly realized that this is just not something we can keep up with.
Right,
I
right,
might go back to it at some point in the future. I definitely think that there's a value to online shopping. I mean, I do it all the time myself.
right.
But when we were just getting reset up, it was not something that needed to be on my plate.
Right. So I've asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything I haven't asked that you think people should know that, or you feel like we covered it pretty well?
I feel like we covered an awful lot. I guess, if I could ask you anything, you have 3 kids.
I do.
Was there like a turning point when all of a sudden things felt easier for
Yes.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
I know, right? It's so funny because I talk to moms with younger kids and I do remember how hard it was. So my kids are 17, 15, and 12. And I tell you, um, all of a sudden it feels easier once they hit middle school, probably once all three of mine were 12, 11,
Yeah.
12, and older, it felt so much easier. But then, of course, my eldest, it feels really easy, but he's leaving, right?
Yeah.
So it's
And
that
that's a different challenge, and
right,
navigating new adulthood and
right. But you're finally at that point, and now it's the point is they're learning a lot about entrepreneurship too. So all that
Mhm.
stuff that you're teaching your child now about the benefits of
I hope
entrepreneurship.
so.
that you have no idea if they're ingesting it or not. They've learned it all. They've been watching you. The benefits of being home and having kids who communicate with you, who know that you're available at most times, it makes a huge difference. And you see all those rewards with the older kids, because my kids talk to me. We have relationship. They know because I've been home with them. I've been available with them a lot more than I would have been in a standard job. So
That
yes,
might be what I am most excited about, is
it's
being able to see that as my son grows up.
right. The fruits of all your hard labor. And it does, it will happen. I promise. So that's a
It's
great.
good to hang on to.
Well, thank you so much, Megan, for joining us. And again, everybody, Megan's store is called Derriere de Soie. If you live anywhere in Virginia, come and check one of the stores out in either Charlottesville or Roanoke. If you don't live nearby, maybe you need to take a visit to our beautiful state and just connect with Megan in general, because I know she would love to share what her challenges have been. Maybe you have questions we didn't ask. So thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.